With your host, Donnie Miller, connecting our community with information about issues and opportunities.
Good Sunday morning and welcome to Bridges. I am very, very glad to have you with us today. We're talking about an issue that I bet most of you don't think is an issue in Lucas County, and that's the issue of runaway children. We generally think about kids who run away in bigger cities like Detroit or Chicago or LA, but you'd be surprised to know that it is indeed an issue right here in Lucas County. We've got some very forward-thinking people at the front of this concern who are trying to address this issue in a way that provides a safe place for kids. We are talking about Toledo Area Ministries and their program, Toledo Area Ministries Youth Services Program. We're talking to two folks from that program today, Mary Schmidbauer, who's the program director of Toledo Area Ministries Youth Services, and the marvelous Marie Curtis, who is an LSW and part of that outreach team.
Absolutely.
There. So I am glad, first of all, to have you both with us. I want to make sure that people understand that this service is there. I would bet, as I said to you earlier, that a lot of folks don't know what you do and that it is indeed an issue right here in Lucas County. How much of an issue is it, Marie?
It's a huge issue. It's what makes it even harder to get a grasp on is it's hard to identify who's homeless. You know, because as far as the teenagers, the kids, they kind of blend in and they don't want to own up to being homeless. You know, they're in denial of that, kind of ashamed of that. So it's challenging to identify who's at risk or who's homeless.
Yeah, and we need to, I think, clarify for the audience that we are categorizing kids who are running away as homeless.
It's a
for this
runaway
discussion.
And homeless youth program, and runaway and homeless are used interchangeably when talking about youth. It basically, based on federal definitions, it's someone 14 and under who stays away more than one night away from home without permission. 15 and over is 2 nights away from home without permission. But it also includes youth who unfortunately are pushed out of their homes, perhaps because they have a different sexual orientation or are exploring a different sexual orientation, or have done something that their family doesn't approve of in other ways, or youth who are thrown away, in that youth whose parents have given up on them and they think they're old enough to be on their own, so they're on their own.
Wow. What kinds of reasons are you hearing from kids? For leaving home?
Issues with mom, conflict with mom, mom's boyfriend, mom choosing boyfriend over me, lack of food.
Lack of food?
Yes. Neglect.
And the kids find, when they leave home and they end up on the streets, where are you guys finding them?
Most times we find them through other kids.
Really?
Yes, we can identify through other kids. Yes, the library is a good spot to find kids.
The downtown library.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm amazed at the amount of, the library is so very gracious and they do such a good job with opening that particular site to everybody. It's a feeding site on the weekends, and you're right, you're absolutely right. So, Mary, the kids are coming to you, and what's the criteria? We actually did find some criteria in this wonderful brochure that you guys have, and we're going to put that up on the screen. There it is right now. Generally, they have to be 18 years of age or younger, so you were talking about that. They have to have left home, be homeless, or running away. Not actively using drug and alcohol, can get along in a group setting. And I also noticed that you can't manage kids with an active mental illness as well.
We put that in the brochure just because it's a concern. We don't have a clinical staff person on at all times. If we do encounter a youth who has a specific issue, we will contact and additional support to come in and provide assistance with us. It's not that we would necessarily turn someone away, but we do have a group context, and sometimes group activities create challenges or stressors for people. So it's an issue of being very careful about how youth are supported in our center.
You know, we don't want to think, I think, in this community that this is an issue. Why do you think that is?
I think youth running away is an age-old problem, but it points to a breakdown in the relationship between parent and child, and I don't think we want to go public with that a lot of the time, and it's difficult. And often youth who run are categorized as bad kids or having behavior challenges or problems or things along those lines, when sometimes all they're looking for is a hand and help to identify their situation as potentially abusive or a difficult situation for them to live in.
I totally agree. We tend to think of kids as being extraordinarily flexible and you know, malleable, and that's just really not the case. I think so many people would be surprised at what these kids are struggling with these days.
And many of the kids that we run into, we find that they have young parents. So that's another challenge. Their parenting skills, with you know what they have to work with, their communication with their kid, and things of that nature. So that's an issue too, because sometimes the parents' needs aren't met, so the child's needs not going to be met. And they often have the same need, you know, depending on how old the parent is.
Yeah. Do you ever have an opportunity to work with the families in this situation? Because I assume that the kids are really.
We help. We offer counseling. We group setting with the parent and the child, kind of negotiate what's going on in their conflict, kind of educate the parent on what's going on with their child. You know, because again, they're doing their best, but sometimes their best can't meet the need of the child.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, there aren't resources about how to parent an adolescent.
That's true.
And adolescence is one of the biggest, most critical stages of development, and there's so much going on. But we've forgotten about it because it's way back there in the past. And so, you know, if parents think about being held responsible for the decisions and choices that they made in their adolescence, I'm pretty sure that we'd all kind of cringe.
Yeah, I would, that's for sure. So. And you know, we say on this show all the time, and it's just not uncommon anymore to be a 30-year-old grandmother. So it's really not uncommon to be a 30-year-old grandmother. And you're right, we are not giving these young parents any real guidance, I think, in you know, systemic guidance, basic guidance in how to raise these kids. Are you having much success in getting parents and kids back together?
Most of our youth go back to their home, whether it was a foster home or their home of origin. And we've been able to kind of establish some contract kind of, you know, behavior contract kind of, not quite that formal, but giving the parents an opportunity to understand where the child's coming from, giving the child an opportunity to understand where the parent's coming from, and trying to bridge and mediate that conflict. And you know, adolescence is specifically about becoming independent, and that's when parents have a hard time. So working to understand the different needs of adolescents as a parent is critical.
So I would think that most people presume that if kids are running away, it is around that 15, 16-year-old age time when everything is terrible and nothing makes sense, and I remember that time very well. So is that when you were finding that most kids are leaving home?
That's 15 to 17 is the majority age.
Yeah, about 15, 17. What's the youngest that you've seen?
Probably 11.
11?
Yeah, probably 11.
Where'd you find this young person?
Downtown area. A lot of kids are unsupervised too, and you can be at risk for being homeless as well to be eligible to come to our drop-in center. And when we see kids who are 10 and 11 walking, you know, across high-level bridges and things of that nature unsupervised, and that's a red flag. So, you know, they're identified like that. You know, we approach them because they're too young to be unsupervised.
Sure.
You know.
Sure. Well, how are the kids surviving on the streets until you guys show up?
Friends. Couch surfing, the
Couch
library.
Surfing,
They're real resourceful.
From place to place.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Real resourceful. Know where to go. You know, no downtown like, you know, bus stations. You know, the tunnel. That's a new spot. Yes.
Between Vistula Parking Garage and the OI complex.
Really?
Back in the day.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah. I'm surprised that they get to be there without being
during certain hours.
Yeah.
It's not locked.
It's not. And so food they're getting from friends, and so it's an awful like it is everywhere else in the nation when it comes to.
We don't have as large of areas of congregation of youth. For example, if you go to Seattle, there's youth just everywhere, and anyone up and down the I-5 corridor, there's a lot of congregating spaces. Our community hasn't really been sympathetic to youth who are out on the street, and sometimes we have police procedures or policies that discourage congregation and hanging out in different places. So the youth, being resourceful, find places where they'll be able to stay with little or no hassle. That includes the mall, that includes the libraries, that includes, there's a few youth-oriented recreational facilities around town that people will hang out at. And that's where we end up finding them primarily. In terms of the runaway issue, it's significantly different than it was in the 1970s when the Runaway Homeless Youth Act was passed. Because then there wasn't any way to easily communicate as much so as there is now. So youth will make arrangements to stay places based on Facebook or social media, or be able to text back and forth and get a place to stay. And yet there are also some who stay in abandoned buildings or houses in the central city that don't have anybody staying in them. We've had a couple of youth who've squatted in those for periods of time. Sure.
And that's what your team does. Your team goes out and looks in those places and brings folks in.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, the cool thing about this program, one of the best things about this program, is that kids just have to call, I'm told, and you'll go get them.
Oh, absolutely.
You'll go get them. We're going to give you that number in just a second, but it's just amazing. If you are out there and if you are afraid, and if you've run away from home, or you're homeless, or you're even at risk of being homeless, all you have to do is to call the TAM Youth Services Program, and they will come and pick you up. I was with a group of folks the other day, and somebody actually called, I can't tell you who it was, just to see if that service actually worked. It actually works. It actually works.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought you'd be pleased to hear that.
Yes.
Your folks said, you know, I'll be right there. I'll be right there to get you. So once you decide, once someone comes into your organization, how long can they stay? Can they stay?
They can stay for, our operational model is that we want to get them back into their home if it's safe as quickly as possible, or get them out of the center per se and give them a stable place to stay. So we use a host home model, and our partner in that is Family Connections, the 12. They provide us with up to 5 host homes if we need them for youth who need a place to stay. The drop-in center is used sort of as a triage center, just to get to know them, give them a place to crash if they need to sleep, give them a good hot meal and a shower and place to do laundry, things along those lines, as well as introducing them to, if they're going into a host home, who their host home parents might be. So it's a short-term stay at the Page Street house, but it can be up to 21 days within the guidelines of the federal programs.
Really, 21 days. We're going to talk about that just a little more when we return, okay? You guys stay with me. We're going to be right back. Don't go anywhere.